Okay, we are live. So let's see if this is going to work. Yes, it has. Okay, great. Right. If anyone doesn't know, this is Hayley. She's one of
Hi.
the incredible coaches on Commit to Six, and I'll probably pull her in and out on like bits that would be valuable, and then we'll do a Q&A at the end. But I will take you off the screen now. All right, bye. Okay, hello everyone. I'm not going to do the annoying thing of like, oh, let's just wait for everyone to join. I'm just going to get in. I'm going to get started. And if you miss the start, you can watch on the replay. So, first of all, thank you all very much for being here. I really value that you have given me your time, and I promise that if you give me the next 30 or so minutes of your time, maybe a little bit more if you're staying for the Q&A, which will be very useful, then you will get a hell of a lot out of it. And I'm going to cover the science of fat loss. And then I'm going to share with you the coaching principles that I've used and refined over, at this point, like over a decade, which makes me feel very, very old, to get the best results in terms of long-term fat loss for clients. So losing fat, but actually keeping it off. And I think a lot of people talk about it, and I'm going to talk about it quite a lot today, but there's often a clicking point for people. And it's taken many, many years for me to figure out like what those clicking points are and what the kind of common denominators are for people, and how to finally get people to lose fat and keep it off without feeling massively over restricted. So that's what I'm going to be sharing today. There will be a Q&A at the end. Hayley and I are going to stay and answer as many questions as we possibly can. If questions come up throughout, just fire away. I'm not ignoring them. I will come back to them, but I'm very easily distracted, so I probably won't look at them during, but do put them in. Emily's just said that wait, can't hear you. Emily says she can see and hear. Oh, can hear now. Okay, fine, great. Okay, cool. I'm gonna not look at that because it'll be distracting. But Hayley, if anyone's like can't hear, then I don't know, somehow mime to me that that no one can hear or something's gone wrong. So that's going to be the structure. We're going to go through the science of fat loss. We're going to go through applying that in coaching principles, because the science is actually relatively simple, as you will see. And then we're going to go over a Q&A. So as I said, if anything popped up, and then I want you all to leave feeling confident, knowing where to focus your efforts. If you're a coach who's here, of which I can see there are almost like half the people here are coaches, which is absolutely fine. I don't do gatekeeping of information. If there's something here that you think will help your clients, share it with them. I'm more than happy for you to do that. So yeah, whatever you get from this, hopefully by the end of this, you will leave feeling motivated and ready to take some action. Okay, so for those of you who are here and don't know me, not sure how you got here, but I'm Emma, and I've been a coach, and I've been coaching women to lose fat for over 10 years now. And during that time, I've learned a hell of a lot, and I have now packaged it up into what I think is truly the best fat loss program for women who want to lose fat and keep it off while enjoying their lives to the fullest. Like, that's fundamentally what we do. So what I'm going to share today is a lot of the principles that we use on Commit to Six, but also the methodology behind them and why they're so useful, and how you then might be able to apply that to your own life, or to join Commit to Six, or to your own coaching. There will be many people watching who have already done the program or who are on Committed, which is the continuation program. Please do share your experience so that anyone thinking of joining can be like, oh yeah, that sounds like me. I would love to join. If you do want to join this intake, you can head over to esgfitness.co.uk/commit. And the sooner you start this, the sooner you feel better and the sooner you get results. Okay, now that little pitch is out the way, I'll get on with the actual juice. So the key problem that I see everywhere, and actually the whole industry built off this, is overcomplicating fat loss. And people usually overcomplicate fat loss to sell you something. And this is a $1 billion industry. So not only do people end up wasting money, but they're often left really confused and demotivated and overwhelmed, and like feeling like there is something inherently wrong with them. And that's the reason things aren't working. And then like the main issue of that is like you also just don't get the results that you want. So not only have you lost money and you feel confused, but like you're not even where you want to be. And this can be really disempowering because you're told that fat loss is often out of your control because it's aging or it's menopause or it's hormones or it's your metabolism. And these are all things that either people convince you that you don't fully understand or that you can't directly control or that just seem quite complex. And ironically, it's the belief that it's things like cortisol or hormones or sleep or aging or your metabolism or not knowing how to reverse diet. It's thinking that it's that actually stops you losing fat. When you believe it's out of your control and that there's nothing that you can do about it, then you're far less likely to be motivated to actually try to do the things that we know will get you results. And then that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and your expectations become reality, not because it has to be that way, but because as a result of your beliefs, you stop taking the actions that you need to take. So I'm going to simplify this. And this is the science of fat loss, but I actually wanted to just quickly touch on body composition, because as much as I've spoken about, like, sold this webinar essentially as a fat loss webinar, what I actually care about more is improving people's body composition, not just fat loss. And there is a key distinct difference here. Improved body composition will also prioritize maintaining lean mass at the same time, or maintaining muscle mass in this instance at the same time. And this is important for various reasons, right? So obviously this is subjective, but how you look, how quote unquote toned you are, your shape, your disease risk, your quality of life, your cancer risk, your mortality, how strong you feel. There are also cognitive function benefits. Like, there are loads of benefits to maintaining or building muscle at the same time. So we don't just care about fat loss, we care about body composition. And one of the reasons I wanted to touch on this before we get into the rest of it is that unfortunately we're seeing this more and more with the use of weight loss drugs. So people are losing fat and not prioritizing their body composition, and this will often leave them in a worse place than when they started, because as they lose fat and don't resistance train, they also lose a lot of muscle. And then if they regain the weight, which is very common when people come off these medications, if you're not resistance training, what you're doing is you're just going to regain the fat, and you end up at a similar weight, but actually with a worse body composition, a higher percentage body fat, and metabolically much worse outcomes. So I feel like now it's even more important than ever to really be focusing on, it's not just fat loss, it's body composition that we're focusing on. So with that said, this is the science of fat loss / body composition. Your body will lose fat when it is consistently in an energy deficit, right? When it is consistently using more energy than it expends. And that's it. There's no hormone block. There's no supplement that you need. There's no food timing trick. You haven't fallen into starvation mode. It's not metabolic damage. You don't need a specialist diet or to cut all your carbohydrates. Like, none of that overrides it. And this is a really, I'm sure a lot of people watching this will be like, yes, we've got to this point, but there's still so much confusion about this in many different areas of the internet. And I guess people are trying to sell you this because then they can sell you some kind of solution. This might seem simple. And then I think people overcomplicate it because they think just because it's simple, it can't be easy. Is that the right way to say it? Just because it's simple, it should be easy is the point. But it's ridiculously hard. Anyone who's ever tried dieting will know that just simply being told it's a calorie deficit isn't particularly helpful to people. So this is where the next part comes on. Just let me quickly go through the basics of this. So on top of just being in an energy deficit, if you care about body composition, you also need to think about your protein intake, resistance training, your sleep, your stress, the quality of your diet. So we'd be looking at things like minimal ultra processed foods, not completely excluding them or demonizing them. A focus on whole foods, including healthy fats in your diet, getting enough fiber in, fruit and veg, some fermented food in there for a good healthy gut microbiome. like you want the quality of your diet to be high as well. But once you've hit these basics, then actually your body composition will essentially, for most people, be where you want it to be. But the hard part is actually doing this consistently. And that is where coaching comes in. So this is the part I really wanted to share with people, and what I'm most excited about with this webinar is that I've been doing this to a degree in different ways for almost 15 years now. I've worked with actually tens of thousands of women at this point, and there are some distinct patterns of the most successful people, the ones who like truly find that it changes the way that they see diet and exercise. It allows them to get in shape and stay in shape and live their lives to the fullest. And the ones that get the most out of coaching, get the most out of, in this instance, like Commit to 6, and for who it's been truly life-changing, there are quite a lot of like common insights that we notice in people that you can take and apply to your own journey, or come and we will help you apply them yourself. And this goes back to like these basic principles as well. Like these would all be set specifically for you based on what you're struggling with, or what your goals are as well. So the way that I built Commit to 6 is based off people's problems, right? And this is how I would recommend that anybody builds any kind of coaching program, right? And this has been no accident. I've developed this over the last decade. I listen, I observe, and then I create solutions to the key problems that women are facing when they try and lose fat. And Hayley, I don't know if you'd have anything that you would add here, right? So I'm going to bring you on in a second, but these are the 7 key problems that I've identified. And in an ideal world, there would be 6 because Commit to 6. But unfortunately, this is life and there are 7. These are like the 7 things that I pulled out. So perfectionism or all or nothing mentality, an obsession with the scale weight. And I will come on to a little rant about this later, but it is absolutely wild when you think about it that so many otherwise completely successful diets are ruined because people have like a misinterpretation of the scale weight, or even when they logically understand the scale weight, it still puts them off and it still makes them give up. So scale weight is actually a huge element of this. Lack of energy, lack of time, confusion and overwhelm over where to actually focus your effort, and listening to too many people and then not doing anything. Decision fatigue, especially around food choices, and hunger. And then what we've done over the years on Commit to 6 is come up with specific coaching solutions to each of them. And that's essentially how we've built the program, which I think is, pretty clever. Hayley, what would you add to this list?
The only thing I would add would be the expectation and timeline, because it's often a longer road than people really have the patience for. So that's the only thing I would add, is that really the work that has to be done to really help someone stay in the process as with all of these things.
Yeah, this is a really good addition because this actually comes up later. It's just not in here. So, great minds. And it wasn't even from me. It was from someone on Commit 6. So obviously, yeah. Right, I'm going to remove you and keep going. So I alluded to this at the start, but I'm going to talk through a few like clicking points that I've noticed have been, I guess, like clicking points for people who get the best results. And I find this concept really quite interesting because you tend to notice it with all clients that actually get to the end outcome. There'll be like different clicking points for people. And there's usually a trigger where you're just like, oh my God, like that's it. That was the thing. And now actually everything else is a hell of a lot easier. So we normally see this in things like imperfect action. So this is a quote from someone on Committed. Imperfect action and getting into the mindset that you've not blown it if you have one off-plan meal and actually practicing this over and over until you believe it and see that it works. So this is unbelievably important, and I feel quite strongly about this because it's the principle of imperfect action has fundamentally changed my life. and has probably been the driver to like every single success that I've had. And I had this little epiphany, if you will, about perfectionism the other day. And I think the reason that I don't struggle with it anymore, and this kind of touches on what Hayley was talking about as well, is that I'm unbelievably impatient and I want to get results. And I realize that the best way to get results is to take action. And if you want to take action, you can't wait for anything to be perfect. And when you kind of zoom out, because I think a lot of people will use impatience as a reason to give up. And I'm like, but that will literally only make things take longer. When have you ever found that giving up on something actually got you results quicker? It never happens, right? So I try and kind of use these two things together of like, I use impatience. I use that, what is normally framed as actually quite a negative thing, like, oh, I'm impatient, so I, don't wait to get results. I use that to drive action. So use your impatience. And then another kind of clicking point for people is averages. So over time, what you do on average will drive the results that you get. And this is certainly true of fat loss, but honestly, it's true of like most areas of life. And one concept that people don't talk about enough, probably because I've still not found a like better way to say this, but making your bad days less bad is the best way to improve your average. So rather than trying to like perfect your good days, and what we normally see is someone's already trying to stick to, I don't know, 1800 calories that we know is a deficit for them. And they're like, I'm going to now try and stick to 1500 calories to get faster results. That's the wrong way to look at it. When you zoom out, what's normally happening is you're sticking to those calories for a few days a week. And then on the weekend, you have really big days that might be like 3000 calories. Instead of focusing on making your already good days even better, a much better way to improve your average, and actually a much easier way to improve your average, is to look at your bad days and just make them slightly less bad. I'm not saying like, do something unrealistic, like never have a bad day and never go over your calories and never overeat. What I am saying is that instead of 3000 calories, could you make that overeating, or, like days where you went slightly over 2500 calories and you've saved a whole 500 calories there. So making your bad days less bad will have a far bigger impact. And this is same for like step count, on the days where you've maybe been traveling and you get to the end of the day and you've only done 3000 steps and you think, well, I'll never get 10,000 steps today, so there's no point doing it. Instead, be like, yeah, but could I get to 5,000 steps today? Could I do a little bit more? And having that mentality over time has a much bigger impact on your average, and then has a much bigger impact on your results. The other thing that we use is range targets, because these stop you giving up when you can't be perfect. And we set these individually for each client based on their goals, their starting point, and what's appropriate, and more importantly, what's realistic for them as well. The whole emphasis on range targets, and a lot of people set these wrong, is you have to set realistic targets. So we're really strict on this. It's like that bottom end of your range target, that what we term like non-negotiable side of your range target, that is a promise that you are making to yourself. And you can't like start breaking promises to yourself, because then you break the trust that you have in yourself, right? So that is a really hard promise that you're making to yourself. So if you think, I might be able to hit that sometimes, it's too high. It's meant to be like a lower kind of standard that you hold of yourself. As an example of this, my non-negotiable target for workouts is 3 a week. I don't think I've ever done, because I do short, sharp workouts, I normally do about 6 a week, right? So it's very unlikely that I'm not going to hit 3. With my steps, my non-negotiable is 8,000 steps a day. Normally I'll hit closer to 12,000 steps a day. One of the other reasons that my non-negotiable is 8,000 steps a day is because you get the vast majority of health benefits from the first 7,000 to 8,000 steps a day that you get. So it's kind of another reason for that. But my point being is the bottom side should be very realistic for you to hit. And then the upper end should be something that you're aiming for that's going to give you optimal results. So how we set calories is we'll set like your optimal calorie target for, say, fat loss, if that's your goal. And then we will set your non-negotiable target, which is like, we don't want you to go over this. And that's normally around maintenance. And that means that we know that every single day, if you've got a fat loss goal that you're with us, you are moving forward towards that goal. Other thing I just wanted to mention, and partly because I had a few messages about it today, is the short, sharp, effective workouts that we do. One of the key barriers that people give to not being able to get results is they don't have time. And that is very rarely, if ever, the actual reason. It's more that people expect that they need to spend a whole hour in the gym to get a good workout, or spend hours and hours meal prepping on a Sunday to be able to stick to their calories. And the truth is, you normally don't need more time, you need more focus, and you need to know where to put your efforts. And we are exceptionally good at programming short, sharp, and effective workouts. Like I said, most of mine, in fact, I can't even remember the last time I spent more than like 30 minutes in the gym, unless I was just messing about with mates or something. And when you truly understand, one, how to program, and two, the law of diminishing returns, then you can see that actually you don't need to spend half as long as what you think in the gym to get the results that you want. And finally, the core ethos of imperfect action is simply focusing on what you can do, not what you can't do. And there's always something that you can make a little bit better. Claire's not here today, but she is another brilliant coach on Commit to Six. And something that she always says and gets her clients to do is, if you get to the end of the day and it's not been, the day that you wanted, what's one tiny thing that you can do in the direction of your goal, right? So it might be as simple as, I'm going to do 10 push-ups, or I'm going to, I don't know, have a protein shake before I go to bed, or I'm going to prep my meal for the next morning, or I'm going to pack a bag so that when I get up, I'm going to go straight to the gym. But one like really small, like micro thing, what can I do right now, even if it hasn't been perfect? That behavior adds up significantly over time. Hayley, do you have anything to add? Oh, did I mute you, or are you?
No, I'm muted myself. No, that's perfect. That's everything.
Oh, thanks. Perfect imperfect action slide. Okay, the next comment that we had from someone was backing yourself and the importance of trying to move away from constantly beating yourself up to supporting yourself. You cannot bully yourself into change. And the reason I wanted to get your input on this is because the way that you coach in particular is so much around like changing the way that people speak to themselves. And I think, if you want to touch on backing yourself and the importance of that.
Yes. So I think with my experience of having a family and being a woman, potentially, that might add to it as well, we're very good at being self-deprecating. And when it comes to actually sorry, my dog's just decided to start. I don't know if you can hear him. He's been neglected. And I think when it comes to the kind of maybe diet culture language and the way it's often framed, like it has to be a hard workout, you have to push yourself, it's all very negative, and I just have never found that you can make successful long-term change there. And so there's definitely a reframing about how we show up, and it's actually really liberating, and it feels really empowering to be able to feel proud of the very small things that you do. And I know it sounds so silly. Like making yourself a freezer meal and then feeling proud of that. I get it. Like, I'm saying it now thinking, like, I understand that you're going like, why would you be proud of that? That's like a tiny thing. The fact that I literally did it last night. I had made a spaghetti bolognese and I was like, thank the Lord, because I really needed it. And it was there for me, ready. I was like, this is why I do what I do. This is why I tell people to do this, because it saves it. Your future self just really loves you for it. And that's such a lovely feeling. So I'd rather coach in that style than ever be judgmental or demanding or any of those things. It's got to fit with you. And there is always another solution. It is, can I still Jules this? It's always figure outable.
So always figure-outable, there's always a solution. There's always, and this is the thing, everyone has their own constraints. And this is why, the advice of like, it's a calorie deficit and eat this much protein and work out this many times, like that's fine, and I guess it's somewhat useful on a very basic level. But how do you apply that into your life based on your constraints? That's what coaching is, right? And that's what actually gets people results. And I really like this because I feel like generally in life, just backing yourself a little bit more and being like, no, I do deserve to feel my best. I do deserve this. I do believe in myself. And most of us are weirdly trying to bully ourselves into change, even though in any other context, you would never do that. You know, like you'd never be like, do you know how I'll encourage my friend to do something? I'll bully them. Or like, do you know how I'd get my kids to, I don't know, like whatever they're trying to do their homework or something. You're not going to bully them into, you're going to encourage them, right? But yet we often don't do that with ourselves. So that's a good one to like, is a bit of a clicking point for people. And then this is the one that I will get Hayley back on to talk about as well, is time. And I think most people do have quite an unrealistic expectation of how long these things take. So this says it takes time. Getting your head around this is key. I think for a lot of people, they are so used to quick fixes that frustration can build within even a few weeks if you haven't seen huge progress. And things worth having generally take a considerable amount of time and effort. And I think the sooner people realize that and almost embrace it as well, like actually something requiring a lot of time and effort inherently makes it quite valuable in itself. And that's certainly going to be true for the physique that you build and the health that you build and the investment that you're making in that. And as I said before, you can kind of use like impatience and the fact that most people are impatient to drive action. So if you focus on the actions that you know are going to get you results and you're impatient with taking them, then the outcome takes care of itself. And the quickest way to get results is to not give up. So it's kind of ironic, you know, I would call yourself out if you're like, oh, I'm just really impatient, so that's why I always give up. Okay, well, you're literally just making things take significantly longer. Anything to add on this? By the way, we are about to talk about the scale weight.
It's the fact, so this came up, I think the podcast, I don't know whether we got to the question or whether I've put it up to be answered. It's about like, do you take a break in your diet and all these breaks, and like, does fat loss slow over time, all of those things. It's basically, what am I, a really bad way of saying that, because it takes time, often what happens is complacency sets in. And so actually, this is where having a coach that's objective and can have a really neutral standing point to say, oh, well, maybe this is going, or the steps have reduced, or it's being able to have that really good view. And that's where where time catches people out, because we are doing the same thing every week. It's repetitive. It's meal planning, it's getting your steps in, it's getting the workouts in, and then you repeat it week on week on week on week. So it's easy to be complacent about it. And
yeah, one thing I quite like to remind myself of is like the time is going to pass anyway. So you can either be doing the actions that are going to send you in the direction of the goal that you want, or you can not do those things and the time is going to pass, and like the trajectory in which you go on, it's going to change based on the actions that you take. And sometimes that kind of takes away the time pressure that people put on themselves. And then also fully committing to that long-term goal of like, I know I want to get to this point, so I almost don't care how long it takes. This is what I'm going to do in order to get there. And this is especially true with like health, fitness, body composition goals. It's not like you can get there and then just be like, well, I'm here now, done that job, now on, like, you know, back to the rest of my life. It's like you're still going to have to do the things that you did to lose the fat in order to maintain the fat loss. Yes, the numbers might look slightly different, but fundamentally, like the behaviors are going to be very, very similar. And for a lot of people, especially, you know, smaller and potentially less active women, the difference between a calorie deficit and your maintenance needs, it isn't really that different. So the difference between your dieting behaviors, quote unquote, and your maintenance behaviors are also very, very similar. Like there's not a huge difference, say, for example, for me in a fat loss phase versus a maintenance phase. Actually, I live broadly the same all the time. this is one point I do want to just touch on because it catches so many people out. A lot of people talk about losing something like a pound a week, which, and some people have like wildly unrealistic expectations, but even this in itself is based on being in about a 500 calorie deficit a day, meaning 3,500 calories a week, meaning about a pound of fat. Now, this is quite realistic for some people. For other people's, it's significantly less realistic. I much prefer about a 1% reduction in that's actually meant to say weight, not body fat. But anyway, 1% reduction in weight a week is probably a better estimate because some people can lose more than a pound of fat a week, especially if you're starting at quite a high body fat level. And some people will lose significantly less than that, especially if you're a small person or you're already quite lean. So this kind of accounts for that, or accounts for the fact that smaller people with less fat are likely going to lose weight slower, and there should be that kind of appreciation. And then another thing that people get wrong is that they think that fat loss isn't linear. And I kind of want to make sure people understand this, because fat loss, if you're in a deficit every single week, especially if you're in a similar deficit every single week, is linear. It's weight loss that's not linear, and they are not the same thing, which kind of leads us on to like this how people measure progress and not focusing so much on the scales. And one of the solutions that we have for this is called 30HD. So I'm really passionate about this because I think that the scales ruin more diets than any other single factor, right? Or more to the point, like the misinterpretation of scale weight ruins more diets than anything else. And I remember someone asking me this once. She'd actually been on Commit to 6 and we met for coffee like years later, and she was like, you know, of all the coaching that you've done, and you know, all the rounds that you've done and how many women that you've coached, like what do you think the one thing is? And I was like, the scales. And she's like, no, it must be like emotional eating or hunger or something. I was like, no, it's people give up because of the scales, because they think things aren't working. So then I thought, oh, okay. Well, that's actually, now that I've said that out loud, I probably should do something about that. So the solution that we came up with for this is called 30HD. And what that stands for is 30 days head down. We set your targets so that we know that if you just get your head down and you stick to these targets, which, as we've said before, are realistic for you, we know that you're going to be in a deficit. We know that things are going to move the right way, but you're not constantly questioning yourself. You're not constantly being put off by the scales. And your only real job is to tick off those boxes and stay within your range targets. This is like, I know it seems like probably quite an obvious concept, but anyone who does this rarely actually goes back to weighing themselves. They're like, oh, it's actually so freeing. And now after 30 days, I don't really care what I weigh anyway, because I look better, I feel better. I've clearly lost fat because I can see that in how my clothes fit, in my performance markers, and what I can see in the mirror. Like, why would I even bother weighing myself? Some people do it out of curiosity. But I found that this is actually, you know, you can speak until you're blue in the face, which again, I have done, about people understanding scale weight fluctuations. And that, like, you know, as an example for me, I normally put on about 3 pounds the week before my period, which means that even if I lose a pound of fat that week, I'm still 2 pounds up. So, you know, you can't always rely on the scale weight, and anything that is causing the scale weight to fluctuate overnight can't possibly be a change in body composition. And I used to get quite pissed off at like then people being like, yeah, but the scale weight went up last night. And I'm like, oh my God, how do you not understand this? And it's not a lack of understanding at all. Like, you know, once someone has explained that to you, once someone has shown you like the fluctuations in scale weight and how even just like, I don't know, being hydrated is going to impact the scale, and that obviously has nothing to do with fat loss. If you still can't get your head around it, this is the solution. Like, this works so unbelievably well. And I think there's something not just about like having coaches who know what they're doing, setting your targets, and you knowing that if you just focus on ticking those boxes, you will get results. But it's also just having 30 days away from the scale. And then when you come back to it, you're like, well, I don't care because I have no placement on like what I weighed yesterday or last week, or, you know, so it really does help you break a negative relationship with the scale. So if you are someone who struggles with that, and you find that actually a lot of the time the reason that you give up on diets is because of the scales, then I would highly recommend trying this. Hayley, do you have anything to add on this?
I've just done it with someone this month and it was so successful. It was so good for them because it absolutely got them completely focused on the process in a really good way, because exactly like you said, like she had things happen like social events, and unfortunately a pet died, but like things that would absolutely, if she were to then weigh herself, would influence her decision over her next meals because of that scale weight. So we just took it all away completely and did a whole month just on the process, nailing the process for her. And then she did, I spoke to her earlier actually, this is so relevant. She was like, I caved, I weighed myself.
And
Well, she's lost weight because we knew she would, because she was doing the process. But actually she was like, I didn't need to do it. I did it, but then I don't really feel anything. I was like, well, sometimes
you're free, babe.
nothing.
You're free
You're
from
like,
scales.
that's it.
But this is the other thing. When you do it, you start to realize how much you're like, oh, I don't know, like I feel great, but now I've weighed myself and I'm, you know, haven't lost 2 pounds this week. So I must have been wrong about the way that I feel. You know, like you start to question like how you actually feel. So I think once you take that away and you're like, oh, it really has nothing, you know, no gauge or weight on like how I feel that day, then you kind of become quite free from it. So I'm glad that you're
Yeah. And like I had collected all these little photos, because like we send photos to each other. So I'd collected all these little photos and I'd collected all these little messages that she'd said, oh, I've done this today, I've done that today. And I was going to be like, look at what you've done in 30 days. And she beat me to it because she weighed already. So then I had to like show her afterwards. But it was just important that she really felt, she did feel that detachment from the scales that would have just taken over in the past. It was not, and she got the results that she was looking for, and she has more trust with herself that it's actually what she's doing is the thing that where the focus needs to be.
Yeah, I know, because sometimes you see, you know, there are some coaches that are like, we're going to take the scale away because we don't care about that, and fat loss isn't a goal, or, you know, like it's just distracting. We need to focus on how you feel more. I am kind of saying that, but I'm also still saying, like, if you have a fat loss goal, this will get you better results. Like, this is the point of it. Like, because then you're taking away this thing that's putting you off all the time and is giving you a reason to overeat or often over restrict, depending on how you respond to the scales, right? Because sometimes we'll get people that maybe the scale weight goes up a little bit because it's the week before their period, even though they're in a deficit and they've lost fat, the scale weight's gone up for some reason. And then they're like, right, slashing my calories to 1200. And then obviously you can't stick to that long term. And then you end up overeating and this causes a whole load of problems. Or you think, oh my God, I've been working so hard. I've been in deficit all week and the scales still haven't gone down. I'm going to give up. You take that away and you're like, okay, let's review my week. Oh, I did stick to all my targets. I've done really well. I've been to the gym. I've got my steps in and I managed to stick to my calories, even though it is the week before my period and my cravings have gone up. Okay, this is a successful week. And this is how we define successful weeks, is what actions have you taken and have you ticked them off in line with your goal? That's what's actually going to get you results. Okay, next thing that is like a big clicking point for people is mindset, which will surprise nobody, but mindset is everything. This person says, getting mindset sorted is a work in progress and takes time, but it's worth it. And this is so important that I actually built a whole mindset course that goes alongside Commit to 6. This alone will improve your life. And we get so much feedback on this. And it will improve your life far beyond just body composition. This is a slight tangent because sometimes I like to give examples that aren't too woo-woo, because I know previously I kind of struggled with the term like mindset, and I was like, cool, I've heard you talk about mindset, but how do I actually get results and what actions should I be taking? How you think about things matters on a physiological level. And this stuff always blows my mind. And I'm sure, you know, if you listen to the podcast, you probably will have heard me speaking about stuff like this before. But even your ghrelin levels, so the hunger hormone in your blood, is influenced by what you think about what you've eaten. So this is a kind of side note, but like one reason not to just trust your hunger is that it's not always telling you the truth. And one really famous study on this is the milkshake study, where they give participants two milkshakes on different occasions. One of them is described as a thick luxury milkshake, and the other one is described as like a low-calorie diet milkshake. And they measure people's blood markers of ghrelin, and they find that after this like indulgent milkshake, ghrelin levels, so your hunger levels in your blood, drop significantly. But yeah, after the diet shake, they don't drop half as much, right? So you are still physiologically more hungry based on your interpretation of what you've just eaten. And then another study in like a kind of a similar vein is on omelets. And what they did in this one is they gave people, everyone got the same omelet, but they gave half the group a menu that said it was a 4-egg omelet, and half the group a menu that said it was a 2-egg omelet. And in reality, everyone got a 3-egg omelet. But what they noted is that the people who thought they had eaten 4 eggs felt significantly more satiated and then ate less for the rest of the day than the people who thought that they'd eaten 2 eggs, who reported feeling still hungry and then ate more throughout the rest of the day. Like, again, this is completely to do with like your mindset, your interpretation of things. So your expectations have a really big impact on your reality. This is even true with exercise performance as well. One study on this looked at the impact of your genetics. So I need to get this right, but your belief around your genetics is actually more powerful than your genetics themselves. So what they did here is that they basically misinformed some people about whether they had this gene that would improve endurance performance. So if people thought that they had that gene that improved endurance performance, they did better. If they thought that they had the gene that, or they didn't have everyone has the same genes, but they didn't have the gene variant that would improve performance, then they performed significantly worse, even when that was the incorrect information, right? So again, it's like what you expect has a bigger impact on performance than actually your genetics in that instance. And all this to say is that how you think about diet and exercise and your mindset isn't just like woo-woo. There is like a physiological impact on this, which actually isn't really what I should have been talking about in this mindset section. But I will mention that my favorite part of this, and I think is probably why a lot of people come to Commit to 6 and why I enjoy coaching it so much, is that we attract a lot of people who have this like fuck average ethos. And I could talk about this for hours, and I have done, and I've done numerous podcasts on it and Substacks on it, and I will probably one day write a book on it. But the short premise of it is that you need to realize that the world is not going to change for you, and that you probably don't want to follow like the preset or the average or the social norm, because at the moment, I mean, you could look at outcomes of this in various contexts of life. But if we're just looking at body composition and health, like the average person in the UK is overweight and unhealthy. And that means that if you don't want to end up like that, you can't just accept doing the average things, right? You can't be lulled into this false sense of security that, you know, it's fine to overeat at every meal. Or I think we had a question on the podcast recently, which I loved, which was like, how is everyone eating all of these like croissants that are like the size of your head? You know, like what's going on? Like this is like the norm where I live, and everyone seems to be doing it. And then you zoom out and you're like, right, but also not everyone is healthy, right? The people that are doing those things generally aren't healthy. So you have to decide to reject the norm, that you want more, that you're willing to act in a way that maybe isn't the social norm and isn't, you know, drinking every weekend, so that you can take actions and create a life that you want. And this isn't about judging other people's choices. Like anyone can do whatever they want. I have no issue with that. I think the issue is most people don't make those choices. They just follow the norm. everybody else does it, so I'm going to do it. So they've not actively chosen to do that. And if you're like, no, I actually don't want a job that I dislike, I actually don't want to be unhappy and have no energy all the time, like, okay, well, that means that you are going to have to live in a slightly different way, and you're going to have to take actions that go against the norm, because unfortunately that is the norm. So that's one thing that it's covered in the mindset course. And then the other thing that I kind of just touched on here is the energy first element. And I'm glad this came up. And this was a little bit, when I first created it, self-indulgent, because I needed it myself. So I distinctly remember when I built this, I had the most awful week of ADHD symptoms. I had really low energy. I had zero concentration. My mood was awful, no productivity, generally just felt pretty crap. So I decided I would start something new, and I decided that my goal would be specifically to optimize for energy, because in my opinion, everything else flows from energy. And so many women that we work with come to us like already absolutely exhausted, and then they try and pile on more things that they quote unquote have to do because society's told them they should look a certain way or be in a certain body, or they feel these expectations. And this rarely works because you're already exhausted. Now you're piling on more stuff. The way that we think about it and the way that the energy first formula works is that you focus on building your energy first, because it's a hell of a lot easier to get in shape and to stay in shape when you have energy, right? And it's easier to make good food choices, and it's easier to get your steps done. It's easier to do a workout. And actually, when you do these things, your energy compounds even more. But it's important that you start at the right dose. You're not just going from, I have zero energy, I'm barely sleeping, and I wake up every day and feel like a zombie, to, oh my God, now I need to lose weight. I need to go to the gym every single day for an hour. That's not realistic, right? That's why your range targets have to be appropriate to you and where you are. And then we push those up as your energy levels increase. But even the psychology of this, I think, is really important. It changes from like, this is something I have to do in order to lose fat, and dieting is inherently a bad thing that I don't enjoy and has an end point and is over restrictive, to this is something that I get to do to build my energy to feel my best. And really, that's like the whole ethos of how we coach, and I think is a real clicking point to why we get such great results. Haley, anything to add on energy first?
What you said is right. I really think, I know that people are eager to jump in, get started, do them all, but I know that then by week 2, week 3, people are tired, and it's because they've not done this first bit first. So I'm really stressing that this is the first thing you need to look at when you come on.
Yeah, and it's very action orientated anyway. It's just almost like the reason behind why you're doing it changes, and when you have a different motivation behind doing something, it can feel very different. So for example, like the same actions with different intention feel completely different. If you're like, oh, I'm eating this food to fuel myself and feel my best so that I can, go to the gym later and feel great, or excel at work, or be there for my kids, or whatever, that feels very different to, I'm going to try and eat as little as possible to try and lose as much weight as possible, even though I'm really hungry. Like it's complete, like actually the action of eating in line with your energy demands might be quite similar. And you even see that with like workouts and stuff, right? If you're thinking, God, I need to go to the gym to burn as many calories as possible, that's not motivating at all, right? If you're like, I'm going to go to gym because I want to be strong and I want to come out feeling incredible and I want to push my body and see what it can do, it's the same action. It might even be the same workout, but how you feel about it is completely different, and the energy behind it is completely different.
Yeah, I think the way as well, you talk a lot about small women, and I think in our society, we live in an obesogenic society, which means that food is all around. And so I've definitely had a few pity parties about being 5'3", like 5'4" on a good day. But you have to reframe that into it, because it can be empowering once you really get to understand your energy demands of what your body as a small person needs in a day. And instead of it looking at like, I don't get to eat what other people eat, or I have to say no, or I have to refuse things, actually it's really empowering once you get into a space where you know what makes you feel good, you know the foods that your body works well with, and just having a lot more knowledge and a lot more being able to be in that environment and stick to what is best for you. That's what I really appreciate about all of this.
Okay, great. Right, so we're going to go on to the Q&A, and I can see there's loads of questions. If you do want to join the next Commit to 6, this is where you can join. If you struggle with any of these things, so perfectionism, all or nothing mentality, scale weight obsession or impatience, lack of energy, lack of time, confusion, overwhelm, decision fatigue, hunger, we have solutions to every single one of them. I haven't really spoken about all of them in great detail. The 3-to-1 method specifically for people who maybe don't want to track calories or really struggle with like overthinking food choices is honestly the perfect balance between flexibility and structure. And it's where a lot of people go wrong with calorie tracking, is they just lose all structure. And then the hunger guide is like our evidence-based way to eat in a way that's going to reduce hunger as much as possible. Okay, so, and also if anyone has any questions for me, or they just want to have a chat to me before they sign up, then you can just message me on Instagram. I'm more than happy to have a chat. Right, so questions. Oh, Paul is just saying, this really is the last diet you'll ever do. Until I found Emma a few years ago and did a round of the EC and Commit to 6, I was a yo-yo dieter. I'm now consistent and have had many good habits. Live by imperfect action. Yes, me too. And focus on doing the best I can for the day. Now I am able to maintain my weight, no longer have quote unquote fat clothes and smaller clothes. I just wanted to listen, as I never go a week without listening to your dulcet tones and wise words. Oh, Paula. That's very nice. If it was perfect 6, it wouldn't be you. Yeah, so true. Is Commit 6 a 6-week subscription? So it's a 6-week course, and then you can join Committed, which is a monthly subscription. But you don't have to join. But by the time you get to the end of Commit to 6 and you love us and you've got amazing results and you just want to build that and you've created an amazing relationship with your coach, then you'll probably want to stay. But there is no like tie-in. You can come in, do the 6 weeks. And what you'll learn in that 6 weeks, I mean, there's a lot of stuff I haven't shown here, but we have a whole knowledge bank. We have the mindset course. We have the energy first formula. Like, you could, in theory, take it all and apply it yourself. So you can learn a lot just doing the 6 weeks as well. I quite like this, how to mitigate your bad days. It's probably better than how to make your bad days less bad. So significantly better than that. On backing yourself, yes, it's really important to have that confidence to back yourself. Celebrating small wins is so important to this, as is never breaking a promise to yourself. But also the beauty of the group is that you have a backing. If you have a backing yourself wobble, we've got you, and we will back you all the way. Even when you don't feel like you can do it, we back you 100% of the way. So true, especially Emily, who is incredible in the group. I think that for us who have been dieting on and off our whole lives, we don't trust ourselves that it can be different this time. I tend to think of myself as, here we go again, I've fallen off the wagon yet again. I totally get this. And this is actually a mindset that you definitely need to work on and change, because it very quickly becomes self-fulfilling. And I've seen this so many times where you'll have like what actually would be quite a small little wobble of maybe you went over your calories one day, or you didn't hit your steps one day, or maybe it was even a few days where things haven't gone to plan, and then in your head you're immediately like, I've fallen off the wagon again, here we go, I always fail on diets. And you confirm that story that you're telling yourself, instead of thinking, do you know what, I'm going to start this. And anyone who's starting to Commit 6 and is resonating with this, I want you to start this and think, this time is going to be different. And when something does happen like that, which is probably inevitable to everyone at some point, instead of thinking, oh, well, I knew this was going to happen and I always fail on diets, you think, okay, no, I've committed to this long-term goal. What can I learn from this? How can I get back on track? Now I need to reach out to my coach. and like I'm not going to give up on this. And that's like the fundamental difference. But I completely get where you're coming from, and I know that it's a hard thing to do, which is exactly why having coaches and having a group of people that support you makes a big difference. But I think it's that assuming that a trip up is failure that really kind of stops people making long-term progress, and that's why they keep yo-yo dieting, because they immediately are like, yep, I knew this would happen. And you start telling yourself this story that you can't lose weight, or you always give up, or you never get results. And then that story becomes reality because you start looking for it, and then you start seeing it and you kind of like retelling that story, but that's not the truth at all. So yes, that's totally understandable. We see it all the time, but the difference this time will be making that promise to yourself that you won't give up. Oh, someone's like, you read my mind. Whatever comes, this is your opportunity to learn a different way this time with the best support and coaches and the entire group to help you through. Nailed it. I have one of those Renfo scales. It gives a body fat percentage. Not sure how realistic these parameters are. It also asks you to set athlete mode or normal. Athlete mode gives a lower result. Should I ignore it and stick to normal? Is there a better way to assess body fat percentage? Honestly, don't try. It's not accurate, and the error margin is so big that you couldn't measure short-term changes in body fat percentage reliably using machines like this. So I wouldn't be looking for something more accurate. I'd just be like, I'm going to focus on these actions and I'm going to commit to them for at least 30 days. And by that point, you will be able to see that you are making progress. You won't need scales. And actually, again, when you zoom out, like no one cares what your body fat percentage is. It's how you look, how you feel. And you can quite clearly see if someone's body fat percentage is reducing based on progress photos, and again, with those, like, you don't have to share them, but it's important that you're taking them. And that's a far better measure and way more realistic than using something like these scales. So I really wouldn't bother with them. When will the next Commit 6 intake be? Post the 2nd of February, about 8 weeks after. But what I will say is that the sooner you start, the sooner you get results. And that the whole point in this is that it fits around your life. And it's very easy to think that it will be easier to start later, or that somehow your life won't have, you won't be as busy later on. And in 6 weeks, everything will be easier to start. Like, the reality is it won't. And the whole point as well is that, like, you get to do this around your life, your busy life, your great life that has loads of different things pulling you in different directions. I was previously on Commit 6 and had a calorie range. Even at the top of the range, is this still aimed to be a deficit? Most of the time, yes, but not always, because there's a few other factors that I pull in, specifically people's dieting histories. Sometimes, so this is quite interesting. I could probably go way further into this, but if you have say, for example, you're a smaller woman, you need to diet on lower calories, I might make sure that the top of that range is like still a little bit of a deficit, because you don't have as much leeway to play with. And if I know that you want to get a result and I know you want to lose fat, then, and also know that most people, and this is everyone, by the way, like, tends to underestimate how many calories they consume. So if I know that on average, people that try and track 1,800 calories are actually usually closer to 2,000 calories. By the way, this study came out quite recently confirming this, and it was showing that, like, a kind of next level of I guess, like, what's the right word, inaccuracy of tracking calories is that even the calories tracked on MyFitnessPal, even if you did it perfectly, you would still be consuming more than what you thought you were consuming by, I think it was something like as much as 30% in some cases, which would beat people's whole deficits, right? So I will often err on the side of caution, but it will depend on the person. And like I said, their dieting history, what they've said in their target form. I was just setting targets before this. So as an example, someone had mentioned that they often struggle with overeating or feeling over restricted, so that they would prefer like a smaller deficit. And so they've got a smaller deficit, you know, like, so there are other considerations more than just like, what's your height, what's your weight, and, you know, do you have a fat loss goal? But broadly, most people will be like a slight deficit even at the top of their range targets. Heard so much on general calorie deficit and keeping it off in the long run, not working with PCOS, and it's more to do with insulin. What you in when? I'll just ignore that last bit because it makes no sense to me, but I do get the question. No, it is absolutely still a calorie deficit. The insulin resistance will make absolutely no difference. You can be insulin resistant and in a calorie deficit and lose fat. It won't stop you losing fat. It can make things harder, and there can be other considerations, and it often plays with hunger, and it can make it harder to stick to a deficit. And by the way, all of these things that people talk about, whether it's stress or hormones or PCOS or certain medications, they do impact how hard it is to lose weight, but they impact it by making the behaviors that you're taking harder to take, right? Like, is it harder for you to create a calorie deficit because you're struggling with insulin resistance and that's making you more hungry? That might be like the link there, right? But it's not, I'm in a deficit and despite being in a deficit, I'm not losing fat. That's not what's happening. And the best thing that you can do is, if you are overweight for insulin resistance, is to lose weight. Like, that's what's going to make you more insulin sensitive. But if you do need any help with that, shoot me a message. There are some slight other considerations with PCOS, specifically to do with meal timings. I've done a few podcasts on this, so I can send you them afterwards. But there does seem to be benefits to front loading your calories slightly, definitely resistance training, postprandial walking. You know, anyone who struggles with insulin resistance would benefit extra from these things. Great webinar, Emma. Thank you so much. Lots to think about. Thank you. Thank you both. Lots of thank yous. Can you please give a bit more info on Commit to 6 structure? Do you meet online with a coach? How do the coaches set your range targets? Many thanks. Love the webinar and your Instagram page. So I set all the targets. When you sign up, you fill in a questionnaire that basically gives me all the information that I need to set your targets. Then you're sent those when we start, and you're also allocated a coach, and the coach is allocated based on what you're struggling with, their expertise, and also a little bit of like personality, right? So if you're like, I really like tough love, you might go with someone. If you're like, I'm struggling with a back injury, I might put you with Haley because she's an expert in that. If you're like, I want to do a high rocks, I might put you with Claire because she's a performance coach, you know? So there's an element of like, you'll be placed with the best person for you. You then check in every other week, one-to-one with your coach. And at any point in the group, you can reach out with any questions. That's generally the structure. It works incredibly well. You also get a mindset lesson every single week that you can work through. We're available in the group every single day. We have daily accountability posts that you can put in the group, because we find that it's not, there's a quote I love on this. It's like, it's not falling in the river that drowns you, it's staying submerged, right? So if you do have a day where you overeat, we want to know about it and we want to get you back on track straight away. So that's what they're for. If you do have any other questions, one, use this QR code because the website will tell you, and I've done a few podcasts on exactly how we work. And two, just shoot me a message. I am more than happy to talk to anyone about whether this is the right program for them. And also, and I know that probably a lot of people say this, but I genuinely mean it, if I don't think this is the right program for you, or I don't think we can help you, I won't let you join, or I'll suggest that you go somewhere else, or I'll refer you to somebody else. Like, I'm not in a scarcity mindset about this. Like, we really want to help the people that we know we can help. And if this sounds like you and you struggle with any of these problems and you want to lose weight and you want to get it off and you've got a fuck average mindset and you're like, I want the best from life, like, this is for you. But there will be other people that are struggling with other things that actually might be better placed with other coaches. And I have an incredible coaching network and I am referring people out all the time. So if you want to talk to me about anything, then do shoot me a message. What stuff do you need in place to start? Do you need a gym membership, weights at home, some sort of activity tracker, etc.? You don't need any of that. Would some of them be useful? Yeah, you can kind of choose what you want. We have many people that work out at home and get great results. We have many people that go to the gym and get great results. We have people that like tracking their steps or don't like tracking their steps or like wearing an Oura ring or don't. Like, you really don't need any of those. It's just how do we fit those principles into your life? That you come to us with a goal. Let's break down how you're going to get there, what actions you need to take, what's realistic for you, and how we can support you to actually take those actions. That's fundamentally what it is. So this stuff, like, less important, and we will program around what you have access to. Do you feel Fitbits are a good way of tracking expenditure, or is there a more scientific way? No, it's not accurate at all, and there are tons of studies that show this. I would use things like Fitbits as a crude measure of energy expenditure via counting your steps, but the calorie count that they give is not accurate. So definitely don't look at that. It usually overestimates. That's true for Apple Watches or Garmin's or Auras or, any of it. They're very, very bad at estimating your energy expenditure. Thank you for answering my questions. We'll drop a message for more info on PCOS and weight loss. Yes, I would love to help you. I also have some free resources as well. I'm finally in a place where the scales don't scare me anymore, and I know I actually need to consume more calories to build muscle. Do I still apply the same principles? Yes, but the numbers would be different. So if you have a muscle building goal or you want to gain some weight, then obviously we wouldn't have you in a calorie deficit. But a lot of the same principles, I'd like, you need them for just health, right? So it's all that really changes. Like, there's fundamental principles that you need in order to feel your best and live a healthy life. And then really the thing that changes is like, well, how many calories are you consuming based on your body composition goal? Like, do you want to lose fat, or do you want to gain a bit of weight, or do you want to stay as you are? And so that like the numbers might change slightly, but the principles are the same. Okay, I will let everybody go. I tried to keep this to an hour. It's just gone slightly over. I massively appreciate everybody's time. I hope this has been useful. As I said, reach out to me at ESG Fitness on Instagram, or you can fill in the application form that is at this QR code. If you are signing up and joining us in February, we are really excited to have you. And genuinely, when you commit to this, it is life-changing. Hayley, any passing words to finish?
This just got me buzzing for the next one. Bring it on. Woohoo!
Let's go. Okay, right. Have incredible nights. Bye.